Welcome to our program on Kardec Radio.
Hello, dear friends. Welcome to the Spirit Society of Virginia and Kardec Radio here in one more Friday Inspirational Talk. This is our public meeting that comes to you in your house. It's a blessing that during this pandemic, we can bring the Spirit Center to our homes. Spiritually speaking, it helps us. It helps us bring this sense of temple to our homes because many of us use our homes as shelters for our unspoken actions. But when it becomes a temple, it's harmony at home. And this moment here favors the building of just that. Let us begin this encounter with a message that Carlos is going to read for us right now. Right, Carlos?
Yes, from the book, The Way, the Truth, and the Life, chapter 145, Spiritual Counseling. Do not rejoice that spirits submit to you. Rejoice that your names are written in heaven. Jesus, Luke 10:20. We often see new disciples of the gospel rejoicing because troubled spirits submit to them. They talk happily about the results of emotion-filled mediumistic meetings in which they have successfully counseled ignorant and perverse spirits. Many of them become entangled in such remarkable incidents and seek to increase these so-called practical endeavors. Desires to enlighten by direct contact the unconscious or unhappy friends on the planes closest to the physical realm. But Jesus suggests the proper remedy for such situations where disciples, always interested in counseling others, little by little neglect their own learning. Sincere counselors should rejoice, not because discarnate submit to them in desperation, but because they should be convinced that the good is ministered in these circumstances, not by them personally, but by caring and charitable emissaries of Jesus, who uses them as channels for divine mercy. May such joy stem from the chance to serve the good with their conscience attuned to the divine master amid the sweet certainties of the faith solidly stored in their hearts. The word of the master to his companions was very expressive and can amply benefit today's enthusiastic disciples.
Thank you, Carlos. Now we invite all of us to join in a prayer, friends. Let us pray together, knowing that at this moment, for parents who have children, our team, Paloma and Daisy, are now in the other channel, Kardec Radio, YouTube, and the Spirit Society of Virginia's Facebook page, streaming the very lesson for children. It's about another miracle of Jesus. So let us join now in a prayer to prepare for this meeting. Dear Master Jesus, who isn't looking for a miracle? Many of us are. the miracles of love when we wake up and feel the harmony inside of us in our families, at work, in the streets, people cooperating with one another with loving care. And you have taught us that goodwill is the key word. Most often, we have ill will and we open doors to darkness without noticing. We give excuses not to cooperate. We justify ourselves in our obdurate attitude. And yet, we dream of peace and tranquility. In this conflicting mode is our society. But we are tired of it all, tired of our own paradox. May tonight be a moment in which we expand our horizons, understand what we haven't understood this far, and feel the joy of your invitation, bathing thoughts and feelings, so our words and actions may come as one with you, building a world of loving kindness, of joy, hope, and courage. Thank you for allowing us to experience this moment and bringing the protection to all of us. Tonight, we especially rejoice for our friend Debora Beldowicz is with us, bringing renewed hope to all of us. Consolation that comes from the truth, a truth that is vividly laid out by Spiritism. May you inspire her, guide her, and may we welcome her in this banquet of nourishment for our souls. May all the discarnate spirits who are as well connected to us be benefited by it and feel the presence of the spirit doctors, nurses, and therapists who take this opportunity to rescue, care for each and every one of us in two realms. With much to be grateful for, we receive your permission to start this meeting in your name and love, and so be it. Thank you, friends. Now, Carol Correa, before Debora Beldowicz joins us, she's going to lead us into another question and answer of the Spirit's book. Right, Carol? How
Right,
exciting is
Denise.
that?
It's super exciting. We can invest on our souls for immortality together. So let us begin, friends. Tonight we are going to examine together question 914 of the Spirit's book. We will read the question and answer together and then bring a couple of highlights for us to meditate upon. So let us begin, dear friends. Question 914, dear friends, is as follows. Kardec asks, since selfishness is based on personal interest, it seems difficult to entirely uproot it from the human heart. Will we ever be able to do so? Brilliant question by a brilliant mind. Now, dear friends, we are fortunate to be able to read the response from the illuminated minds that work under our Master Jesus. Here's what they tell us. As human beings become enlightened about spiritual things, they attach less value to material things. Next, it is necessary to reform the human institutions that entertain and excite such attachments. This depends on education. So this answer is concise, dear friends, and yet rich for the soul. First, the spirit mentors explain to us that the way for us to progress, to take the most advantage of this beautiful incarnation, is for us to detach ourselves from material possessions. So let us take this moment to assess ourselves. Let us do an inner assessment. Let us think about our one most recurrent thought and feeling on a daily basis. Are we perhaps longing for a new car? Are we perhaps longing for a vacation? Are we perhaps longing for a new home? Is this the central desire of our lives at the moment? If so, dear friends, we are being invited tonight to meditate upon spiritual values as well, because the more we put our hopes and desires on material possessions, the more we may feel disappointment, because material possessions are impermanent. So let us live in the world and treasure the material tools that are given to us, yes, because they are blessings as well. But let us remember to use the light of discernment given to us by the promised consoler to nourish our souls, not only for the present moment, but for immortality. How may we then learn to nourish our souls and to attach ourselves to spiritual values on a regular basis? The answer is given to us right here. We are invited to educate ourselves for immortality. How may we then educate ourselves? We may do so by learning the new and by remembering to feed our souls in the same way that we do so with the physical body. How can we engage in such an action? We can watch inspirational talks, read books of an edifying nature, make an effort to engage in edifying conversations, and make sure that we remember the true purpose of our existence, which is to evolve spiritually. And last but definitely not least, remember that we are children of God, and God has beautiful plans for all of us, not only for the present moment, but for immortality. So let us co-create the good with God every day, beginning now. Thank you, dear friends. This is our Spirit Spoke moment of tonight.
Thank you, Carol. And this goes hand in hand with the topic of tonight, the joy of the end of times. We're talking about the end of an era and the beginning of a new era. What is it about? Who knows? So, Spiritism has much to share with us, and we're delighted that at this moment in our first, in this December, so special, because of the pandemic, because of so many issues around the world, we can be here meditating on this, discussing this. Tonight, Debora Beldowicz, a friend who has been with us, comes back. And she comes from New Jersey, Newark, New Jersey. She has founded the group Seara do Bem, and the Harvest of the Good, and she comes here with us to share much. She has been doing beautiful works as a therapist. She has so many hats, but we'll say tonight the best hat that we want her to display is the Spiritist one. And I don't say this is a hat, and forgive me for being so limiting, but we don't want to be limiting, because the Spiritist view is so expansive, but gives us so much consolation. She's going to give to us a view of what's happening right now. Many people are sad, desperate, but is this the end of it all? Let's see. She's here with us, right, Debora? Thank you. Thank you for being with us. How are you?
I'm doing great. It's my pleasure. And thank you for everyone who joined in today and who will listen to this later. I hope I can bring some good news for us. And I know it's a topic that's a little, a little gloomy and to speak about, but we need to speak about because there's a lot of joy that'll come out of this.
Yeah. Debora, we are all yours. And can we share your computer screen?
Yes, I'll put it right there.
All right. So we're all yours, Debora.
Okay, so we can start by the important thing is really the presentation. Not so important for me to be in it. I'm okay. If you guys can see me, that's great. If not, that's okay too. But I see that I'm on it. I'm on my cell phone, so I can see you guys.
Yes, you are. Okay.
So the joy of the end of times. I'm going to ask you all to be thoughtful about this lecture because it involves every one of us in a very deep meaning. The topic, of course, is a little intriguing because the end of times, every time that you open something new, you have to let go of something old. And it's a choice. We can adhere to the old and be very sad, or we can open a new door and be very excited about what's to come. So it is a conscientious choice that we can make and say, let me be joyful because something will end, and very joyful because something exciting and better will come. As Spiritists, we know that everything that comes will be better than what it was. So this brings a lot of hope, and that's my hope for all of us who will listen to this. I'm going to start by asking some apparently silly questions, but I want you to all in your mind give me an answer to these questions, okay? So here it goes. First question. Is rain a good thing? Let's say, it's raining outside. Is that a good thing for you? Second question. Is rain on a beach day a good thing? What do you think? Is it you're about to go to the beach and it's sunny and then it starts to rain? Is that a good thing? Third question. Not rain. Is rain at times of drought a good thing? See now, by the first question that I asked, if rain was a good thing, maybe you had a solid answer. Yes, no. But then the second question, maybe now it shifted a little bit, maybe if I said it wasn't a good thing, now it's a good thing. But you see how things are not so black and white anymore. Second round of questions. Is death a good thing? Oh, okay. Now it starts to get a little more thoughtful. Is death a good thing? How about, is a sudden death in your sleep a good thing? A lot of people ask, how would they like to disincarnate? How do you like to die? And a lot of people say, oh, quietly in my sleep. So is that a good thing? And lastly, is death through a slow illness a good thing? Now it makes us think a little bit more. Now these questions, we ought to talk about them because they pertain to our everyday life, to somebody we know, to somebody we knew. But as spiritists, it's very smart for us to really go into a lot of these questions and understand how nothing is so black and white when we deal with deeper questions. In the last round of questions, here it goes. Hold up. Okay, here it goes. Is a deep cleaned house a good thing? Everybody lives in an apartment or a house or wherever you may live. Look around, see what needs to be done, what's been done. But in reality, is a clean house a good thing? Do you enjoy just breathing the fresh air? Secondly, is breathing dust a good thing? You know, when you're cleaning the house and all the dust is flying everywhere and everything is out of shape, you have to move your furniture, you have to throw water on the floors and all of that. Is being in that dirt, is that a good thing? Okay, I think not so much. But lastly, that's the last question, is living in a clean house a good thing? Right? So maybe some of you, by all these 3 rounds of questions, can kind of get where I'm trying to get at. But it's important for us to understand that sometimes something that happens and we believe that it's such a bad thing, it may end up being something that has a much deeper meaning. And at the end, our last questions, our last answers really might give us direction as to things need to go through processes for us to understand. So here we go. Now we go back to, we start with the, first I want to give a shocking perspective, and then we're going to go a little lighter as well. So in Luke, we're going to the Bible, right? And there will be great earthquakes in various places, and famines and pestilence, and there will be fearful sights and great signs from heaven. Why do I like this? In a way, I like what Luke says because he says that all of these are signs from heaven. And if there's signs from heaven, there is the element of knowledge and permission from heaven or God, correct? However, it doesn't mean that whatever it is that happens has to absolutely happen that way. It just means that it has permission to happen. So if we watch the news now, and I try not to watch much of the news, I don't know about you guys, but I watch enough to maintain myself knowledgeable and educated on what's happening, but not excessively in a point where that's all I will see. Because unfortunately, that's what's been selling. And it sells because evil has a louder voice than goodness. And we know that because in the Spirit's book, when Kardec asks, when is it that evil will go away? The spirits are very clear in saying that evil has a very brave voice, a very loud voice. But the minute that goodness wishes to overpower evil, it'll be done very simply. It'll be done with much less effort than we believe, as long as there's a louder voice to it. So if we keep glued to the TV, that is all that we believe that is happening, correct? If you look outside your window right now, most likely in the majority of places of people that are watching this, things are not as the picture here appears. Of course, it depends on a lot of different variables, but for the most part, things are not as they appear when the house is getting clean, if you all understand. I do want to go through what our world, what planet Earth has been, or what it will be, because I think it's very important for us to know that nothing that is now has always been this way. Things have been much worse if we're going to take things on a much bigger picture. And the way Earth is now is not even close to what it will be someday. So this brings us a message of hope. In the gospel according to Spiritism, we will understand that there are different phases. Planet Earth, for example, is in our still on the very bottom of its evolutionary pathway. But it's not for us to lose any hope, because things do get better. I just want you to know the different worlds. For some of us that studies this, it's going to come as very basic, or maybe I'll bring something new that I have learned here after quite a bit of studying of this. First of all, there's primitive worlds. What are they? They're intended for those first incarnation spirits. When human soul is created, it needs to start its path in a world. And this is the first one, the primitive world. Their instincts, these souls, these spirits, I guess. Now that they're reincarnated, they're called souls, but they're not tempered by any kind of sentiment, no refinement, no benevolence, nothing. No notions of right or wrong. Brute force is the law. So they are looking for food, the conquest of food. There's no such thing as industry. There's no such thing as intelligence. So no inventions, nothing. We can see how our primitive, I guess Freud would call the id, but we can see how much of that primitive man we have in us, of that being is in us. When we are hungry, people say, would you kill for food? Would you yell for food? Would you become somebody else? It's very easy for us to say we would never get aggressive. We would never yell. We would never steal. We would never do this or that. But we still have some of that primitiveness in us. And a lot of that happens when we lose control because of what we need. I am thirsty. I'll do anything to get a drink. I am hungry. At this point, I will take because I'm so hungry. So does it justify? Not if you live in a primitive world, because there's no concept of right and wrong. However, if you move on to a world of trial and expiation, and that's where we are living, I'm going to ask you, friends, what do you think predominates in this world? Good or evil? Think about it. We are on the second scale of an evolution, right? Of a world evolving. Only on the second scale. So we know the primitive world, there's no concept of right and wrong, nothing of that. So evil, let's put it that way. I'm fending for myself and I'll do what it takes. In our world, is it good or evil? Well, there's more evil present than good. That is why we need to get to this point of regenerative world. It's still evil, still prevails. And we saw that first picture and, oh, Debbie, but I thought you were going to talk about good news. Yes, there's good news in this because it's still present. Evil still dominates a little more. However, we are very close to the end of these times. Regenerative world. What do you think? Do you think evil? Do you think there's any evil in it? Because we all talk about it and we all want to be there, but do you think there is such thing, right? Well, the answer is there is still evil, but much reduced. The good outweighs the evil. And this is where the end of times as we know it is approaching. This is why we have to feel joyful, because now we are on a path to this new world in which evil is much more reduced. Children are being born that are helping us with that. And we know these children are born and they don't want to eat any meat. They don't want to eat any animals. They don't want to see any pain. They don't smack their friends to get their toys. They already have the sense of moral that is so much higher than a lot of the parents. And a lot of them are here to teach us. So we know Jesus sent all these new spirits and has been sending them for a past few decades to help us because he knows. And we have to know that this time of this evil prevailing over good is pretty much coming to an end. Souls that have something to expiate. So we still have to pay off our debt of past, let's put sins. That's not the correct word, but you get it. And we may absorb new strength by resting from the fatigue of struggle. Struggling hurts. It gets to a point where it's exhausting. Who wants to argue all the time? Who wants to just always show that they're right? Who wants to fight so much for so much money that you don't know what you're going to do? They say, about the we buy things we don't need with money we don't have to impress people we don't like. Isn't that silly? So this is going to get to a point where it just ends, right? Then we are going to happy worlds. Now, happy worlds, is there any evil there? That's something that I learned and that I never had paid attention before, but I did while I was doing research for this. And the interesting thing is, I did this lecture just as Corona started, just as it was not a big deal yet. Let's put it that way. It's so interesting, right? Happy worlds where good outweighs evil. So if good outweigh evils, then we are confirming that there is still some evil. You see how much work we have to do, but do you see how it's going? It's getting there. It's always moving up. Politically, on such worlds, and we're talking, absolutely, we're not speaking politics here in today's world. But look at this. This is in the gospel itself. And it says, politically in such worlds, relationships between nations are always friendly. They're always friendly. There's no such thing as, one trying to throw rocks or clothes or whatever. And they're never dispersed of any ambition of dominating their neighbor. Wow, this is a happy world that we're going to live in. Can you imagine, everyone? Can you imagine you saying, what? Why would that person want what's not theirs? Why would they want to take what's the others? Carol here on her reading today of the Spirit's book talked about selfishness. Look at this. Anyway, or by war, which it is consequence. War is always consequence of pride. Plain and simple. Authority is always respected. Why authority and not authoritative figures? Because people that are authoritarian, their power is only as good as temporary. It goes away. But authority itself, it's earned. Jesus had authority. But most of the figures that we know of, the emperors, the presidents, all of that, most of us, we don't know their names anymore. If it wasn't for, constant history books talking, but we don't know them anymore. Because a lot of them fall because of their authoritarianism. Authority is so different. Anyway, authority is always respected, for it's conferred only on those who have merit, and it is always exercised with justice. It's not about I'm using my authority to do what I want. It's I'm using my authority to do what is right. That is so different. You see that? Authoritarian will force you to do what is good for them. Authority will even put them in a bad place, quote unquote, for the good of others. And finally, of course, we have heavenly or divine worlds. And what are these? Is there any evil in it? Absolutely not. That's where good reigns complete. All inhabitants are purified spirits and there is no evil. We know that that's where Jesus and all the Christs live. Let's put it that way. So why did I have to go through all these fives, right? Why did I have to bring this up for us to remember? It's very important for us to remember these worlds in this ascending happiness, because the more steps that we take, then you see the evil just kind of dissipating. And when did this planetary transition begin? There's this question, like, where did this begin? Like this transition that we're talking about, the end of times. When did this happen? This is one of the questions on the Spirit's book. Kardec will answer. The spirits will answer. It has always existed. Wow, this is a shock because we're seeing lecture after lecture about transition and we think that this is just happening now. Well, if we really ought to pay attention to what the lectures are usually saying is that it's a period where sometimes it's more prominent, but it's always existed. Look, in a determined time, we may walk in a faster pace. Observe the incubation period of the Middle Ages, preparing for the birth of the Renaissance, right? Middle Ages, oof. But then again, the Renaissance blooms. Now, I want to talk to you about three very, very interesting points. On the Way of the Light, what a book, by Chico Xavier, Emmanuel. So one of the meetings of the Christs, and let's remember that right on the book, and we know what Chico has also many times, whoops, sorry, didn't want you to see that one yet. The information that we have is that Jesus Christ has met 3 times with all the other Christs. Now we got to remember, planet Earth is not alone. It's not the only inhabited planet. We're very little. We're part of huge. We're part of all this galaxy we're just a speck. Now, everything can happen to us and not draw too much attention. However, if we do something that'll take planet Earth out of its position, we might impact all the others. So if we're going the way we were going, with all the wars, with all the chaos, we might have to put our friends on other planets also in trouble. So this is what happens. Jesus first, with all the Christs, other Christs, right? He met once when it was time to form planet Earth. Then he had a second meeting when he was coming in person to bring his gospel here to planet Earth. And then we know that there was a third meeting. And this meeting took place in 1969. That's when the man stepped on the moon. And what happened is planet Earth was on a difficult path. If we think about it, we've had wars, First World War, where so many died, the second, double deaths. And we're not going on an easy path. So Jesus had to ask. He had to really come up with a solution, or come up, and he would advocate for us and say, look, I'm going to ask for a moratorium of 50 years. And I will believe my people, and I will ask, and I will send more and more enlightened spirits during those 50 years, especially to help the inhabitants of Earth so they live in peace. And they can show that they can do this. They can show that they can go in peaceful manners and not bring all the other planets in trouble. Why? Because now if there was another war, it would involve nuclear weapons. It would involve weapons in which the entire planet could move, literally move. Its axis would be differently, and that would impact all the other planets. So that's when all the other planets' Christs had to be involved. So Chico Xavier says that Christ intervened in this. Christ asked for us, Jesus, that we're talking about. And if we could, up to 2019, last year, more facilitators would if we could do these 50 years, we would see an advancement in so many things. Great progress to achieve peace, unions within countries and their governance. I don't know if you remember, but the beginning of 2019 was a we were walking on eggshells. If you remember the news, there were so many almost blown up wars. We came very close to a third world war. And I remember that was just in the beginning of the year. There was different countries. I'm not going to mention all these countries and everything, but everybody was holding their breath. And I think a lot of people were, please, let's just get to 2019, the 20th of June, July. I forgot the month exactly, but if we can get through it, Jesus asked, let's just stay 50 years. So let's move on forward from there. And why does these things happen? Well, sometimes, right? Sometimes we don't understand. Sometimes we're just still stuck to the old. I love this picture because it's, these men here, cavemen, just still using this square, and people come in, a new person or something new comes, and we're still so entangled with the old. We're so entangled with what we know, the status quo, that we forget that, hey, there's something better here. I want you to read this. This is very, very interesting. I don't have a lot of reading through my slides, but some are pretty interesting. Look at this. A pandemic that came from abroad and spreading rapidly from the ports where infected passengers arrived, asymptomatic or not, without any medicine that could stop it. All the inhabitants confined to their homes to avoid contagion. The total paralysis of the economy. The army watching the streets, infected doctors working to the exhaustion, thousands of dead daily without bearing for many days because those who dug no longer could handle. If we read this, could it be something that we saw in the news or are seeing in the news? Think about it. Diseases spreading, pandemic, people asymptomatic or not, passengers arriving, spreading things. Medicine couldn't really stop it. Economy, army watching the streets, police closing things. Wow, this is something that I could be seeing in the news, a month ago, last night. But this is something from the year 541 and 544. This is 1500 years ago. This is from the plague of Justinian. This is the Black Plague, right? The bubonic plague. Yes, he was a Roman emperor. There he is on a picture there. And this is one of the general's counselor who was taking notes of what was happening. It seems like almost verbatim that this could have been yesterday's news. This is just so it can bring to us. This is nothing new. This is new to us. But we're talking about 1500 years. Okay? Look how amazing. It's almost verbatim as any of the newscasts could be bringing it to us. Parties became bipartisan, and politicians abandoned mutual critiques. And then Procopio, that's the person there who wrote this, but then he said that lasted not very long. And we could see this, right? We could see parties becoming partisan in some things, and then all of a sudden it falls all again. But we also see, if we move forward a little bit from this, we move forward and we see the Black Death. We see between years 1347, 1353. But then why do we bring this up? Because we see some similarities as well. Do you remember that 6 feet apart? Do you see the little stick, the doctor there? This is a doctor. Okay, this is someone who would treat the patients. It's a little scary if you're sick and someone with that outfit comes in, right? But he had his protective gear. He had this mask with this beak that you can see, this beak. And in reality, it would keep his face far away from the patient. At the same time, at the end of the beak there that we see, this mask, he would keep aromatherapeutic little, not, little, how do you call, little plants, okay, little things to smell better, things that were also believed to keep away viruses and bacteria, even though we didn't know about viruses and bacteria yet, but it kept away something, the evil. So he also kept the stick. We could see the time at the end of the stick. We could see how distant he was to the patients. This was one of the doctors and their protective gear. We see now that things, in all reality, hasn't changed all that much as far as our needs, right? This is one of the pictures of, again, someone who's working in the front lines with this pandemic that we're living in. Then we see the Spanish flu. And the interesting thing is, every time there's a big pandemic, there is a possibility of war, or there is war happening. And a lot of times where the soldiers or, the spread of the virus or the bacteria or whatever infection it is, it's sometimes the same reason why the war ends, because the soldiers starts dying more from the illnesses than from the war itself. So there's a correlation almost amongst wars and pandemics in a very short phase. Now, are we truly progressing then? Is it true, Debbie? Are we really progressing then? Well, gospel according to Spiritism. The question is, does the improvement of the human race always proceeds by slow progression? And the spirits will answer, well, there's the regular slow progress that inevitably results from the force of things, but, and this is where I underlined, when a people does not advance quickly enough God also prepares for it. From time to time, a physical or moral shock that hastens its transformation. So sometimes we're not moving fast enough, not as fast as we could. And a lot of times it's because we're too passive. We're not taking our sleeves, bringing it in, and doing something. And then something has to happen, right? Scandal sometimes. It's right, it's biblical. Scandal is necessary. But oh, those who the scandal comes, beware. But it is necessary. 200 years ago, think about it, 90% of the world population subside in extreme poverty. Today, fewer than 10%. Literacy continues to rise. 17th century, not that long ago, no more than 15% of Europeans could read and write. Today, more than 90% of the world's population under the age of 25 can read and write. How wonderful. And then we see over the last century, we become 90% less likely to be killed in a car crash because of what? Advancements to safety, to security, to law obedience. Plane crash, killed on the job, killed by a natural disaster. All these have actually lessened. We think about violence. Back 2,000 years ago, a little bit over, what did we do? We were spectators of people, Christians, who would die by animals. We were spectators by men who would fight to their death for our enjoyment. You know, not until a few years ago, there was still some of those spectators for animals, right? Bull fighting and all of those. We would still cheer for that. But I don't think there's a place in the world now that is okay with that. So all of a sudden, we are moving a lot faster. They had animals, they had pit bull fights, dog fights. Still happens. There's still things happening in where people are yay to watch blood and to watch death, which is a horrible thing. But we are progressing from when before we would do this to people who were Christians, right? Hygiene. Think about it. I'm just showing there the Versailles Palace. We have water and pipes. We open a faucet and clean water comes out. We have toilets. Think about the Versailles Palace. They would throw a party, 1,500 people? No refrigeration, so all the food is out there. And how would these people go to the bathroom? Think about it. They would go on the side of the walls. They would go in the gardens. So we are progressing. You know, sometimes we like to romanticize the 20s or the 30s or even the 40s. But if we think about it, general anesthesia or any kind of anesthesia. Anybody here ever had a toothache? Well, you didn't want to have a toothache in 1850 because your tooth would be pulled without any kind of anesthesia. So medicine, we're also progressing. Yes, we are progressing. Now, this is the part that I find very interesting. In the whole lecture, I think this is where it gets me. First World War, 40 million deaths. 40 million. A lot of people died in the First World War. What do you think the Second World War death is? And this is according to most historians. Well, Second World War, about 75 million, almost double. Now, what do you think? Why do you think Jesus intervened in this for us? Because why do you think that was so important for him to have had a meeting? If Jesus had to have meetings, he had 3. How many meetings we have to decide the color of our curtains, right? Jesus doesn't have meetings unless it's something very important. And he had this meeting because we were on the brinks of a third world war. He asked for 50 years, but why? Were we so close to something big? Well, had we had a third world war, and we came very close to it, not in the past few years, we came very close to it. What is the projection of death that you believe? According to this, right? First statistics, 40 million. Second World War statistics, 75 million. But the projection of a third world war, according to most scholars, is 85.3 million. What, Deborah? That doesn't make sense. That's just a little bit over the Second World War? Well, keep reading. In the first 45 minutes, I was shocked when I heard that. You know why? Because now we're talking about atom bombs. We're talking about nuclear weapons. We're talking about multiple countries using arsenals that we have no idea of what they actually have. We're talking about much more pride and much less of an amount of people with an extreme power. So we see coronavirus. We see this COVID-19. Interesting, isn't it? 19. That's just a year that we had to hold on for this 50 years moratorium. Corona has claimed about 1.5 million lives. And this is a very respectable amount. We didn't have to have one life claimed. 1.5 million is quite a bit that we need to respect. If, however, we take this and learn from this, we have to understand that this was a chance for us to cooperate and not end this world. Many of these people are here on a mission. Many of these people are here, and many of these people have chosen to disincarnate in this manner as heroes. Many of them are heroes because they chose to leave a message for us. The choice was to have a third world war where the first 45 minutes we would have about 85 million people dead. But yet, some souls that are 1.5 could very well have taken the place of this horrible, even more amount of souls would have perished. We have to think about this because sometimes, in Spiritism, we don't study the entire lesson. And a lot of times we can come out as, oh, this person died because they must have done something horrible and they got this illness because they're paying for something they did. Well, a lot of times they can have volunteered themselves to be amazing missionaries as well. So we have to be very careful with this because we don't know the story behind everybody. All we know is that Jesus, again, he won. He was able to keep Earth progressing. Do you pray more when things are easy or tough? Because sometimes we need that, just like Kardec brought to us. We need something major to happen to even awake our progress and to awake our faith. When do you pray? Sometimes we pray more when things are tough. Most of the times, unfortunately, we look for a spiritist center when the pain comes to visit. When is our faith put in questioning? A lot of times we like to say we're very faithful until something happens in our house. And then our faith kind of shakes. But I want you to bring this joyful news is that we are progressing. Most people do not really want freedom because freedom assumes responsibility. Most people are afraid of that responsibility. It's time to take that responsibility. We have to do something now about. We have a chance to really embrace the phrase, the joy of the end of times. We don't have to hold on to what it was. We can learn from everything and do much better. And I think we have the power to do that. This is that house. This is that picture that I wanted to show you guys. When I asked you if you enjoyed cleaning your house, and a lot of times we say no, or maybe yes, but do you enjoy breathing all this dust? Well, this is the dust that's happening in the world now. This is what we're breathing. This is what's out there. However, do you enjoy living in a clean home? This is the chance that we have to end the time of this dust and doubt and dirt and all of this, pride and selfishness. We can end this if we really put our best foot forward. Is it the end of times? When Kardec disincarnated, his 5 books, we all know them, but there is an extra. There's just this one book with all his work that wasn't published yet after he died, right? So posthumous, and we see all this work that we sometimes don't study, but we should. One of the questions was, is it the end of times? Is it the end of the world? Is it time? When is it? Kardec will say, no, it's not the end of the world that we are preparing for, but the end of the moral times as we know, or immoral times. It's the old world, the world of prejudice, selfishness, pride, fanaticism. This is regeneration of humanity. That's the chapter that this is it. So Kardec was saying that, the end of times, what times are these? And he was saying this over, 150 years ago. So this has been happening. The end of times, these times where it's all about prejudice, it's about selfishness, pride, fanatics. We're seeing these new children who are born now, and they don't even understand the concept of prejudice. They embrace whatever color, whatever race. We are seeing more people in the causes of animals, in the causes of nature than we have ever seen. So this is a time to be joyful. Allan Kardec in Genesis, he says, henceforth, in these new times, it's not about a partial change of a renovation limited to a certain region or people or race. It's about a universal movement operating in a moral progression sense. This is what it is, everyone. This is the message that I wanted to leave here with you. The happiness, the joy of the end of times. These times that are past overdue. These times that we bring with us, full of selfishness, of wars, of division, of all of this. And I'm not here to say anything political. I'm saying these from a much, much bigger angle, from a spirituality angle. It's time, for sure. Fraternity. Let's stop talking about fraternity and let's really begin to be fraternal. People ask, what's the biggest or the greatest type of love? And a lot of people say the greatest love is the love of a mother. But even then, that love may be conditional because it's your child. I believe that maybe, perhaps the biggest love is really the fraternal love that really asks for no ties, no family ties, no blood ties, nothing. Just because you're my brother and my sister in Christ. So we got to stop talking beautifully. Stop with the beautiful speeches and really begin to act them. It's time to walk the walk. And that's the joy of the end of times. Spirituality. We got to put an end to religion and really embrace spirituality. The perfect concept between you and Christ. The tie between creator and creature. We need to end all these religious differences and really walk towards the goal that has always been love. In cooperation, not competition. There is room for all of us. Whatever your business may be, whatever your beliefs may be, there's also room for your neighbor's business and for their beliefs. And you can gain so much more cooperating than competing. Think about a World War III in which every country would be the opposite of fraternal. They would care nothing for spirituality. On the opposite, they would use religion as a token of war. They would also not be cooperative. They would be competitious. They would compete for power, for land, for more weapons. But this didn't happen, and it does not have to happen. With this virus, with this time that we're having now, we're having an opportunity to be fraternal. I have never seen so many good people out there helping, wanting to help, people putting themselves in a position of danger to help others. And I'm not condoning this, but you can't help but think people are being less selfish now. People are being fraternal. People are looking for the greater good. People are no longer, or at least they're beginning to see how religion does not matter. The virus doesn't discriminate. So people are beginning to see that it's about spirituality. It's about God. It's about the Creator. It's about love. And people are starting to embrace one another. People are starting to cooperate. With this virus, it also came cooperation. I have never seen the world cooperate in their science, in their running for a vaccine. But we need to vaccinate ourselves for possible more selfishness, more pride. We don't need that. My message is here. Let's really embrace fraternity. Stop talking about it. Be fraternal. Let's really throw religion down the drain. Let's be spiritual. And lastly, again, let's not give ways to competition. Let's really cooperate. Thank you, everyone. I hope that I brought a little bit of hope and to tell you all, it is a joyful moment. Embrace it. Thank you.
Vanessa, we can't hear you.
Thank you. Thank you, Paloma. We're going to bring everybody here. Yeah. Okay. I was telling Deborah that reading the book Good News, Jesus said exactly that. He didn't create a religion. We respect our religions, of course. It's not a problem to be religious, but to be really religious in the spiritual sense, as Deborah is saying, right, Deborah? And he says here, talking to Simon Peter, the gospel does not, because we were studying yesterday for the morning prayer, that's why I have it at hand here. The gospel cannot condemn family ties, but places the unbreakable bond of God's parenthood above it, telling us about the importance of keeping our divine ties above everything, as Deborah is reminding us. The true sense of fraternity, right, Deborah? No self-interest, right? I think there is a question here. John DeRosa is saying, the real question is, why will this virus be enough encouragement for the changes that are needed?
It's up to us. It's really up to us. It's free will. I think the virus is more than enough to be the motive, to be the reason why we change. I don't think anybody will change because of the virus. It'll exasperate our best qualities and our worst demons inside. So if you were evil before, this will give you the opportunity to be more evil. If you were a good person, this will be an excellent chance to be charitable. So it will bring what you already are, but without the masks, without any protection from your true self. So when you expose yourself fully, maybe you can really see in the mirror if you are contributing or if you are stagnating the progress of Earth. But is it enough to encourage us? I believe so. I believe it absolutely is. And it's up to us now to embrace changes, the changes at our door. We can grab it, we can embrace, we can work with it, or we'll need another Christ meeting in a few years or in a few centuries if we close our eyes again. We don't need another pandemic after this. We really don't. And I don't think we ought to have one. I think it's absolutely the encouragement that we need.
Yeah. And Matthew Mills made a comment, it kind of feels like the biblical tribulation is at our doorstep, right, Deborah?
That's absolutely tribulation. That's exactly it. Look, when Christ said at his Last Supper, right? And when he asked people to say, I am the Lamb of God, and that's symbolic gesture by saying, take my blood and take my body. Well, if we think about it, when it was time for all the people to run from their homes back in the day in Egypt, and they were slaves, what did they do? They would take a lamb, they would slaughter it, they would put the blood on the door, but they would slaughter that lamb to eat because they knew they would need that strength to go for so many years through the desert, correct? So Jesus comes to tell us that he is this lamb. He is all the food that we need. He is all of the blood that we need. He's using those symbolisms from back in the day before his coming for us to understand that that's all we need. Those tribulations is just part of really accepting his message, his gospel. And we have no need to fear, because we're not just being led by Moses this time. We're being led by Jesus himself through this spiritist doctrine that all we need to do is embrace it. All we need to do is really follow the example, and we're going to be okay. And I really believe that.
Yes. And Deborah, one of the questions we want to ask you is this. So many people now are like, oh my gosh, I can't stand this anymore. And now, for example, for us in the North Hemisphere, especially the United States, for example, we are just, beginning the winter season. And there is a holiday season. Science is saying, behave, don't mingle, watch out. And people didn't during Thanksgiving weekend, and it just escalated. And people are tired. We understand. We're social beings. What would you say to them in terms of this? Like, I'm tired. I can't take this anymore.
I believe we have to really examine our reasons for doing what we do. If it's because you're tired, does your tiresomeness, is it enough to really give up on it, to really give up on what is right? If you have a reason that will, and I think we all have to really read into our own lives and read into what we're doing. What is your intention with this? Is it because you're tired? What is your intention? Is your intent, like I said, all these first responders, without them, we would be in very big trouble. They had much bigger intentions than just protecting themselves. We have to really see, if someone is hungry on the street, will you give your sandwich to that person or not? You have to really follow. First of all, let me follow what God is leading me to do. Listen to your conscience. And I think if we listen to our conscience, there's a lot of good people. There's a lot of good science people out there who will be speaking, and you will listen. And in their voice, you will understand that there is good information, there is good advice, and that will follow exactly with your conscience. I think the excuse of just being tired is not enough to really say it's the right thing to do. I think it has to be much bigger than that for you to go against anything else.
Thank you. And as we're here with Deborah, I know our friends Paloma and Daisy were talking with the children about another miracle. With the pandemic and the tribulations of the end of times, we need miracles. And we say, quote unquote, miracles in terms of our openness of the heart. That's the greatest miracle, right, Paloma and Daisy? Can you tell a little bit about the lesson for the children, please?
Yeah, it was a beautiful message where we continue to study Jesus' miracles, healings, but reminding us that these healings happened because the person that received it was ready and they trusted God. So it's really working in our faith. And combining that to what we're living right now, right? Where is our faith? As Deborah was saying, we have to think about it. What are our true intentions? Because if we're strong in what we believe, we know God will provide. So whatever we're going through, we look with a positive eye, as the kids did today, right, Daisy?
Yes.
Looking at the glass half full.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes. It's amazing how like it really matches with exactly what Deborah was just sharing with us about changing the lenses, right? We can look at what's happening and really focus on the pain and everything else, or we can really change the lens and focus on seeing things positive. So that's why we work with the children. So we did a great activity where we talked about where we're here in this virtual environment. So a lot of the children having to adapt and learn from home. So how do you think about the positive and see the positive? So Paloma had great things that she shared with the children about anything from spending more time with their parents, from having more time to play with their pets, or even time to maybe take a break and go outside between classes. So really working with the children as we're learning ourselves to focus on seeing the good in everything. So I think was a really, really positive class overall.
Yes. And Deborah, you talked so much about the new generation and how much we need to open the doors and the path for them. And this is not simple, right, Deborah? Because Jesus came, it was prepared for thousands of years, it was announced, and yet many people didn't see that coming. And the same repeats to date, right?
Absolutely. And these children, they're different. I mean, they are different. They started there, late 50s already, 60s. The baby boomers started out with the peace and love movement. But now these newer and newer, these millenniums, these generation, all these children, they are here not so much for the peace and love anymore. They're here for they're here to really kick us in the butt, if we don't get it right. I mean, and our responsibility is they need to have room to work. We can't, if we're not going to be examples for them, if we're not going to open the places for them to have a voice, for them to work, for them to show what they're capable of doing, if we put them in a box and tell them that this is what you're supposed to do and that's it, and you have no voice and we can't have a dialogue, we're going to be doing a huge disservice to them, because they're here to help us. And we are here to guide them as parents. But listen, that era, I don't know if you had parents that at times would just say, I'm the adult, you're not to speak. You know what I mean? This is over. This is now a dialogue. The monologue is over. So yes, these children, with the special aura about them, they already are here and they're questioning what doesn't make sense. They're questioning why we're doing things that we're doing. So yeah, I think Paloma and Daisy, your work is so huge, because without guidance, these children will be depressed, they will be hyperactive, they will be all kinds of mental illnesses installing in them because they don't have the space to use what they came, that their program is not being put to work. And then they're going to be a huge level of autism, a huge level of a lot of these things that the children need to put it out there, So I congratulate you too for doing, for working with children, because I'm telling you that's the heroic work right there.
Yeah, thank you, Deborah. And actually, Carol, Luciana, Paloma, and Daisy, they take turns every Friday to work.
Awesome.
Thank you. But we want to thank you, Deborah, for this time with us, for bringing such a beautiful layout of, it's a much food for thought, right? And this month is the month of the Christ. We're thinking of the coming of the Christ. For us, we know we cannot take it for granted any longer. And we are at a very critical time on earth, not only this year, but these times. We're ending another decade, beginning the third decade of this 21st millennium, the 21st century, and the third millennium. So we really need to change, to transform, and to accommodate this. So thank you, Deborah. We hope you're back soon in 2021. All right.
Count me in. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you. So now we're going to bring our friend Ney. Thank you, Ney, for being here with us. He's going to pair up with Luciana, because Luciana is going to lead us into the spiritual passes, and Ney is going to lead us into the final prayer. Friends, right now, wherever you are at home, or if you are at work or driving, you don't need to close your eyes, but take this time. Bring your bottle of water, your glass of water. Remember, the good spirits, says Emmanuel, in the book of Consolador, it's not translated yet, the Consoler. If we want to be instructed, the good spirits come because they want to instruct us. If we want to change, they will come to help us change. It's up to us. So let us open the doors of our hearts, not only to receive, but also to give. This is time to give, because they're going to use all that we can give to help many that we have no account of, that are in greater need than us. Luciana, we will follow your lead for the spiritual passes, please.
So let us close our eyes and breathe in and out, feeling the presence of our Master Jesus coming to meet with us. He is right in front of us, opening his arm, ready to embrace us with much love and care. As we approach to Master Jesus, we feel those lower connections and vibrations changing, recycling, transforming in a better vibration so that we can connect with this divine in us, bridging with the heart of our Master Jesus. He is here to heal us, give us strength and courage to continue to work on the good and see the good everywhere we go, and trust in Him so that we can all progress together. As we continue breathing in and out, we feel lighter and lighter, and the light of the Master embrace us, and now is enveloping the whole entire house where we are, healing everything and everyone in both realms of life. Our house is being cleansed, energized, and harmonized by the vibration of God and Jesus. And this light, just like His love, continues to expand in our point of view, expanding throughout the neighborhoods, enveloping towns, cities, states, countries. And we can see from above as we can go up higher with Him. We look and see the planet Earth enveloped in this healing light. Blessings, remedies, good vibrations are being sent to the planet as our governor continues to watch and pray for us. We can feel that we are always being taken care by Master Jesus. He takes care of the whole planet. And as we stay here, vibrating high vibrations of love, soaking in this love, we together will pray in gratitude with our dear friend Nate.
And keeping our eyes closed, let us give thanks to our beloved Master Jesus for this meeting, for this teaching that our friend Debora brought to us. Let's give thanks for all the mentors, all the good spirits that illuminated her in her research to bring this to us. Oh, Master, help us to endure ourselves, to go through those times that we are having a lot of challenges. May you give us the strength that we need to come out from those challenges as a better persons, more fraternal, more illuminated. Lord Jesus, we also pray for those who are suffering most in these critical times, for those brothers and sisters that are in the hospitals, that are in the streets, in the prisons, or any higher risk places. May them be blessed by you through your faithful servers, workers that are here to help us, to help our planet to go through the next phase of its generative path. Once and again, thanks God for our brothers and sisters here together in both realms, sending their energies, their vibrations to get together in a prayer for their higher realms and bring the Jesus blessings to the earth and to us. And with your blessing, Master Jesus, with your love, we end up our meeting tonight. And so be it.
Thank you, Ney. Thank you, Luciana. Thank you, Paloma, Daisy, Carol, And Debora. What a special night. We want to remind everyone, if you still have a question, feel free to send it to us to cardiacradio@gmail.com. And don't forget, tomorrow we'll be here at 11 a.m. Saturday for Health and Spirituality program. We're going to be talking with Elsa Rossi, who is a chairperson of the British Union of Spirited Societies, about a beautiful project she has been doing there, amongst others, about the Lord's Prayer. It's very interesting. And in the month of the Christ, and we say this because of Christmas, we want to think about everything related to him. And the prayer he taught us, so special. It's explained by Kardec in the Gospel According to Spiritism, but we haven't had an opportunity to talk about it here at Kardec Radio. So tomorrow at 11 a.m. live, we'll be here for that. Thank you, friends. Once again, Debora, thank you for being with us. All right. And until next Friday, wonderful. Big hug, John De Rosa, Teresa Castro, Enso, Matthew Mills, and Andrea Cusley, Souza, Narciso, so many friends, Tony Torres, and many others. A big hug to all of you. And let's stay tuned, because at Kardec Radio, we are always nourishing our souls. Thank you, friends.